And then I was like, you thought we were just going to play a game of telephone, but instead I've torn out all your skelly bones. A true comedic genius. And then he started screaming. It was something about the way I was actually tickling his funny bone that must have upset him, I think. Mortals these days. No sense of humor. Aren't we one tiny skeleton short on this set?
Oh, Yorick? Yes, I sent him to the web of deceit. I had my hat tested after he said he lined it with lead, but it didn't come back with anything except for cat fur.
Cat fur, eh? I wonder how that could have happened. Oh, right, he did that too, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little mean. I suppose as long as we bring him back out here at the end of the episode, he won't have any reason to make any kind of evil plots. I mean, he is extremely dangerous. That is the through thread for this whole series, is extreme danger. He has massive powers, unbeknownst to mortals and immortals alike. Yes, and I can't help but sense that some greater threat still is brewing somewhere deep within his skeletal past.
Today's episode is West Africa, and just another little reminder, I am not an expert in African history or culture. These are little curated bits to get your interest, and we will always highly suggest that you go out and do some research on your own as well.
As with most topics, I might add.
I watched parts of a documentary called In Search of Voodoo, Routes to Heaven. It was really fascinating, just really fascinating in and of itself. It was directed by Digimon Husan?
I do indeed believe, though I may be incorrect, when I say that the name of this particular director is maybe probably pronounced Jaimon Honsu? Honsu?
Digimon Horseshoe.
You see, it's funny, because usually the bit is that I can't get it right, and she knows the thing. But in this case, apparently, it's opposite day.
I am so sorry.
This wouldn't be happening if Yorick were here. I can guarantee it. He can pronounce any name, any time. But alas, he's in the web of deceit and despair. Ah, yes.
Where he belongs.
Oh, come on. That's not fair. He's but a young boy skeleton.
He's centuries old.
Yes, a young boy for a skeleton.
Centuries old. He should know better. And with that being said, and without much more ado, today's episode, where empires clash and truths are discerned.
A Christian state betrayed by a nearly trusted ally. A foe willing to ally themselves with the most uncouth of heathen marauders. And a battle with 10-1 odds. The Duke of the city prepares his men against the overwhelming odds. He takes confession. He's going to need God on his side for this one. As the men rally and prepare for war, the battle cry rings out from both sides. Santiago! They cry. The irony is missed by no one. Well, it might have been missed by some, but we'll get to that. Anyway, the inevitable loss occurs. The Duke and his nobles fall in battle, and their city is sacked. The populace sold into slavery, or killed, or worse. Their valuables taken away. Their homes burned and destroyed. In a twist that, to be frank, everyone saw coming at the time, the Duke and many of his nobles were eaten after they were slain, their corpses desecrated in a disgusting manner. Have you guessed what nation I am discussing yet? Have you guessed the year of the conflict? The city that was besieged? I am talking about the Battle of Mbumbi. I can't pronounce easily. I apologize. The Battle of Mbumbi within the Kingdom of the Congo in the year 1622. You see, the Portuguese had quite a little colonial situation going on around the world, and due to problems back home, they were endeavoring to increase their colonial power to secure their position on a global scale. And quite frankly, while they had had a pretty decent relationship overall with the Kingdom of Congo, that didn't make them any less of a good source of slaves and loot and plunder. And so the Portuguese decided, well, it's time for a war. The whole situation is a little more complicated than that. You see, this was actually from the Second War between the Kingdom of Congo, which, by the way, is more of an empire, and the Portuguese Empire. On paper, the Portuguese could field about 30,000 men from Portugal for the conflict if they really, really wanted to do something that dumb. And the Kingdom of the Congo could easily do about the same, if not better. So the way the Portuguese made this siege happen is, this war happen, rather, is kind of ethically. You see, they basically gathered up a massive amount of people who had a horse in the race of Congolese decline. So they gathered a bunch of jagas, right word? Yagas? Let's find out. The Portuguese managed to amass enough troops to launch this attack in the first place by basically amassing tens of thousands of Mbundu archers and supplementing this massive amount of archers with some Portuguese heavy infantry and a cohort of mercenaries referred to as the Mbangala. The Mbangala, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, were deadly and to be feared. They had a sort of a Spartan-like code, at least when it came to child rearing and not running away from battle. They also forced their women to leave their compounds and have their children away from their compound, come back, and then they would raise the child, and after they had passed initiation, they would be considered a part of the culture. If a child was born within the compound, he was killed, or she, respectively. This cohort were notorious cannibals, and this is not even like a Western stupidity thing. This is a thing they actually did. And what's more, they were very feared in the region, so they were an excellent choice if you wanted to cause terror and have reliable troops. In fact, going forward, the Mbangala became a part of Portuguese military action. They became a auxiliary to them, well past Portugal's actual prime. The siege of Mbumbi was just a sort of a symptom of a greater disease when it came to the downfall of the Kingdom of the Congo and other African nations. You see, the Europeans had facilitated a highly valuable slave trade. So rather than taking people, taking wives for yourself, taking slaves for your own faction, or ransoming people back to your faction, etc., 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 there was a very real business of going out of your way to gather people up and sell them to Europeans. That's how the Mbangala became so successful. The Kingdom of the Congo even allowed it, though it's worth noting that there is significant historical resistance to the slaving of its own citizens when it comes to the Kingdom of the Congo. So the Portuguese had done a lot of damage to the country already at this point, and the Kingdom of Congo was rallying its forces for the counteroffensive. A little too late, if you ask me. What with Mbumbi in mind. The real horror in this is not just that it's another instance of killing and eating and brutality and slavery. It's that it's a part of the bigger whole. All over Africa, the European superpowers were using their mobility and their wealth to create a massive industry that was essentially taking people from their home countries and shipping them elsewhere. It weakened every African superpower, several of which really gave the Portuguese and other European powers a run for their money, and would have had a much better chance if it weren't for this industry. And I guess my point is here. The moral of this story, my dear viewers, is a simple one. Never underestimate a man-eater. For, as we've seen in this particular gruesome case, cannibal feet do not retreat.
Alright guys, it's finally here. It's the Voodoo episode. We're doing it. We're discussing it. Well actually I'm going to discuss some of the roots of voodoo versus actually breaking down some of the rituals and practices, simply because there are a lot of portrayals of voodoo out there in the world, and also because some of you might actually practice voodoo. So I thought breaking down the roots of it would be, I thought it would be a better idea, okay? I sat down and I said, let's do a voodoo episode. How should we do this? Oh, I know. Let's talk about some of the roots of it, where it comes from, why it is what it is. Voodoo, or Voodoo as it's called in some parts of Africa, is practiced traditionally by the peoples of Togo, Ghana, and Nigeria, and just other places around. I think I said one of those wrong. It literally is translated to spirit. It centers around divine spirits, elements of the earth, like a divine essence, that is like governing the world, the earth. Voodoo does have some basic similarities with Roman Catholic doctrine. Mainly in the way they view how families work and types of rites and rituals that involve families. You would think that these similarities would make them more compatible with each other, or at least mitigate some conflict. But the Catholic Church has a history of persecution of those who practiced voodoo. Of course, it's not that way today. At least it's not like that today. At least as on large of a scale. Of course, all of this oppression wasn't just limited to West Africa. It was everywhere in the world that voodoo was or is currently being practiced, and not solely by the Catholic Church. Of course, this kind of abuse isn't limited to Catholicism, whether it be from some local Sufi Islamic sects to European missionaries. There's been a lot of this kind of abuse throughout history at varying degrees. Protestant views on voodoo tend to show it as a form of Satanism or a direct tie to Satanism, and that's just simply not true. At its basis, voodoo really is the worship of spirits and the essence of the earth. Like a lot of the other shamanistic religions that we've looked at. At its core, Voodoo has a small pantheon of gods and spirits over different aspects of the earth, over certain essences of the earth. But it is another one of those practices that really varies from town to town, location to location, because they very much worship the spirits around them. If a village has a really prominent rock formation, they're going to worship that spirit of the very prominent rock formation. So it's a really interesting practice with how varied it can really get. But at its core, it's a practice that is solely based on worshiping the earth around them. It's a very communal practice as well. It's often led by a matriarch or a elder couple of a village, and it's really soaked into their everyday life. They practice voodoo by holding markets, rituals together, various ceremonies. It's an incredible way of bringing their community together. It's truly fascinating how much of a community effort that it really becomes. I mean, people end up doing these rituals and practices in their everyday, day-to-day life, and it's not any different to how any other person in the world goes about their own religion in their day-to-day life. It's just so steeped into their way of life, their everyday living, that it is truly a part of them, and it's truly amazing, especially considering about 7 to 8 million people still practice voodoo as their main form of religion in today's world. That might not seem a lot if you think about how many people are practicing Catholics or practicing Hindu or Buddhism. Those numbers are much higher. Really amazing how such a misunderstood practice still has so many practitioners to this day. The media, when you see voodoo portrayed, especially in a lot of horror movies, just doesn't give it a very positive light. And I think that's really a disservice to it. It's truly a really interesting way for people to connect to the people around them, to the earth around them, and to themselves. I hope this little bit of information has sparked an interest in you. It's a really fascinating religion that doesn't get the attention it deserves or the proper attention it deserves. So I hope this inspires you to go out and do some research on your own. There are some really interesting documentaries out there, really interesting articles I came across, and it's just another one of those really fascinating practices out in the world.
It's a bestiary, everybody come see some bees.
In the heart of the Congo, near one of its many rivers, lives the Congomato, destroyer of boats, eater of man flesh, pterodon from hell! It's probably a pterodon. Pterodon. This large, blood-red, bat-winged creature with teeth filling its maw goes from place to place, digging up shallow graves and devouring the corpses. Or, if it's particularly hungry, going through and overturning and destroying boats so it might pick off the humans. It's worth noting that the Congomato as a depiction, or depicted as a pterodactyl, is a purely Western depiction. If, in fact, the Congomato is anything but. No matter what the Congomato is, pterodon, pterodactyl, demon, bat-winged lizard, it is truly one of the fiercest creatures to ever walk, to ever fly the African night.
Alas, dear viewers, our journey through Western Africa, or at least the western side of Africa. Sorry, I fudged it a little on that one, if you ask me. Is coming to a tragic end, as all things inevitably must. I cannot help but shake the feeling that we're forgetting about something very important from early in the episode, something that we left far out of sight and out of mind. Either way, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and oh my goodness! We forgot Yorick! He's trapped in the web of deceit! Away! Oh, what tangled web he weaves when first he practices to deceive. Do you have anything to say for yourself, Yorick? Tangled in this web of doom? Yes. Please. Chicken nuggets. Please, I'm starving over here. All it takes is a couple of Patreon donations. Small donations. Big donations. Please. Welcome back, Yorick. Oh, I'm so sorry that this mean old cat of a witch exiled you into the web. I mean, what a tragedy. What a sadness. Though, surely you don't hold any grudges, do you, Yorick? Yorick? Yorick?
It's clicked.
So, fun fact number 1.
Does it also like mottos?
Do you know?
Is it a motto? What does motto mean?
It's like literally boat destroyer. They're spelled today. I was making a funny, because Congo motto. At least as on large of a scale.
Oh my god.
I fucked it up again, didn't I? Oh my god.
We're going with the first take. We're keeping the fumble. At least it was still coherent.
I don't know why the words in brain won't do this. I'm sorry.
Oh my god. This is amazing. Okay.
You know when you take in information. At least it's not like that today. At least as on large of a scale.
I do believe, and I might be incorrect, it is pronounced...
I hate how you have to do that laugh every time to get in character. I'm sorry.
I don't have to. There's another way. Would you like to hear it?
No, I'm good.
Now I'm in character. Isn't that excellent?
That goes in the blooper.
Oh, I feel my character slipping.
Okay. Alright. I'm okay now. Oh, Jesus fuck. Okay.
Promise not to do it in the middle of a take.
Okay. Serious face.
I do believe, and I may indeed be incorrect, it's pronounced... Okay, I'm sorry.